Howdy everyone, this is Matthew Pizgatti. Again, we're going to be talking about the drip garden, why it's falling, some potential reasons for that as far as the LP price, and does that matter? Which numbers should we be looking at? And we've kind of visited this previously, but I've had some realizations myself as to how these things work, and so I want to illustrate or illuminate on those a little bit. And the reason we're not talking as much about the faucet, or at least I'm not personally, I still think this is the much safer bet, I should say. Even Forex Shark would tell you that as far as the white papers and any of the resources. This is the safer bet. It's a steady 1% a day. That means with compounding, you'll have your interest back, your investment back with less than 100 days. So that's all great. I think this is a great project, but I'm not in it very heavily right now. So that's why I'm focused more on the garden. That's where I'm at, trying to get more capital to throw back that way. So we're going to talk about the garden a little bit and run through some quick little projections as with a little bit of a spreadsheet that I've made and see where we might be within a certain number of days. So the first thing I wanted to touch on was regarding the price. I'm referencing back to a video that I made about 13 or 14 days ago, and I was comparing the LP, the liquidity pool token, the DRIP/BUSD. I was comparing the LP token price with where we are now. So that's 39.25 to 33.85 and some change. And I was also comparing where I am here, LP a day, based on the number of plants I have. And also I was looking at the plant price. But the thing I wanted to draw attention to was that there are two components to this, essentially. There is the LP price, which could go up or down based on the price of drip, as well as how much is in circulation, contract balances, things like that. So there's things that affect this, and drip price being one of them. And then there are there's something that affects this, the LP that you're actually getting per plant. And I think it's important to draw the difference between the two, because there's a natural decline, which everyone's talked about. You probably understand that to some extent, that there is a natural decline or decay in the amount that a new plant costs. And that's to make it easier, of course, for new capital, new people investing to get in. Or if you've already been in it and you're adding more plants and value into the system, it lets you dollar cost average down. It's just basically, if you're adding new capital, you'll start at a kind of equivalent place. And so you're not as far behind. You still have time to catch up with the compounding and purchase an equivalent amount of plants. So this here, the amount of LP you're getting, the fraction of an LP you're getting per plant, that is meant to go down. That's the natural decline. And where's that at? So over the last 13 days or so, if this is this the one I had up? Yeah, about 6%. It's when I added this up, was less than 0.5% a day essentially that were falling, and so this is the fraction of LP I'm getting per plant. And so, I mean, this right now, because the actual plant price is dropping based on this LP token price, it's going to look accelerated overall. It's all going to look accelerated because the actual LP token is worth less. But the actual decline of how much you're getting per plant is actually not that extreme, and you can easily outpace that with compounding. And so that's the point that everyone's making, is that by compounding every day, you should see this right here, this plants a day, you should see this LP number go up. I mean, I know I have. I've gotten some referrals and other things. If you have a smaller amount of plants, like if I was still back at this 18, and this is where those numbers are going to come in. We'll pull up the spreadsheet in just a second. If you're at a lower amount of plants, it's going to take you longer to outpace it. It's going to take you longer to kind of get going. It's like a snowball rolling downhill. That's the whole effect of compounding. Whereas if you had jumped in, even now, if you jumped in with, say, 200 plants or 500 or 1,000, that compounding is already sped up to the point where it's really outpacing that decline, and you'll see this grow, and you should see your daily numbers, relative dollar amount grow as well. But that's the so yeah. So if you have a lower amount of plants, that's one point I wanted to make, is that you're going to be slow going at first, and you may be having trouble outpacing it. But especially right now, because of these two different aspects I was talking about, you could still easily outpace if you were compounding almost entirely and not claiming right now. You could still outpace this decay no matter what. But the thing you're running into is this drip BUSD token dropping, which it has been. And how much has it dropped in that same amount of time, in that 13, 14 days? It's dropped almost like 15%. So it has dropped a lot. And we mentioned that was linked to drip. You should know that if you're checking this price. If you're in the ecosystem of drip, drip is trending downward right now. We're down to about 90 from its all-time high where it was up to. So we're exploring why that is. You've heard people say it's pigs, it's dogs. Like, dogs are down right now, and pigs are way up. And so this is more evidence of everyone getting ready for the launch, which I believe is tomorrow, of the piggy bank. So I think we're going to see this. We're seeing pigs go up. Everyone's probably buying in here, getting their pigs ready or pairing them. They're getting them ready for that launch tomorrow. And I really think that's what's driving a lot of the funds away from drip. And the only reason we can be more certain of that right now is because they're in the same ecosystem. If you already trust Forex Sharks' projects, and you're in drip and you're in the drip garden, they may be claiming more often from the garden. They may be claiming more often from the faucet. And in doing so, they are probably moving them over to pigs to get ready for that launch, to get as much staked as they can in the beginning. It's not like a launch where it's a launch of a new token where they could buy in a lower amount. So they're trying to catch this and buy in before we have this huge spike on launch day, which this may consider continue to go up on that day. So I think that's taking the attention away from drip. And then we all know the whole war tensions, Ukraine, Russia, all the other things that are going on. And we know how crypto's doing in general, which is not 100%. There's been a lot of red across the board in the last month or so. These dogs are pigs as well. Remember, we can't get past more than a month view on this chart. The reason for that is because they've not been out that long. This is a whole entire that part of the animal farm, that part of the drip ecosystem is new. So that's still ramping up, still getting settled, and it's taking attention away from these other portions of the project. But that's why I'm still bullish on it. That's why I'm still looking forward to where it's going to go. And so that's still my opinion. I can't tell anyone what to do with their funds. Obviously, not financial advice, not my profession, but that's what I'm doing. I'm compounding as often as I can, and continuing to just grow this amount here. But let's look at so that was really the only 2 points to summarize, is that there are two components. There's the fraction of LP you're getting per plant, and that is going to drop. This plant price, based on this fraction here, I expect to go down. But the accelerant there is this LP token dropping. So this is something that can change and can affect this price. This price can go up. Now, Forex has mentioned in the AMAs that with the contract balance, the formula that he has, that's based on the daily decay, based on how many days the garden has been running, and the contract balance, that formula he has that adds more buying power over time, that will never reverse. So that's a steady decay. That's going to happen. But that doesn't mean this plant price won't change. It can go up because it's based on how much this LP here buys me, converted to a dollar amount, and that's based on this LP token value. So that can go up. The price per plant can come back up when drip comes back up. Now, obviously, we'll be so much more decayed by that point, it won't be a huge leap. But when you multiply it by however many plants you have at that point, if that's a couple months down the road, which it could be, when you multiply it by how many plants you have, it could be a big jump. And let's kind of look at some of those numbers that I've been playing around with here. And this keeps changing on me, so I keep having to throw different amounts in, which is why I added them as like a variable. But so where I'm sitting right here with the LP price, and then we're still at 0.134 per plant. So you can tell my numbers are slightly different. I'm missing something here. I'm at 32 versus this 33 estimate, but we get a rough idea. And so this is if I compounded every day. If I compound once a day in the evening and add my 7.2 plants, the next day it'll be 7.4, the next day 7.68, and it continues on like that. And we can see how rapidly that starts compounding. 35 days out from now, we end up at $100 a day. That's the daily amount equivalent that I'm earning. And I'm planting, at that point, 21 plants a day. And so you see how this just snowballs and snowballs, where we're at, say, 840 on day 100. Now, because we know the variables like we're talking about now, there's a million ways this could go. I mean, we know that this portion is going to keep declining. We know that it's not going to be 0.134. And let's say it's 0.105. That's a big drop. But let's say by that point we're there. All that does is delay. It pushes out when we can hit those amounts. So we're still compounding. We're still getting extra funds every day. We're still making headway. But it takes a few more days to reach, say, our 800 mark. Maybe it's... But because of how fast we're compounding, because of the number of plants, I want you to look at that again. So just to demonstrate one more time what I'm talking about, right now we're at 0.0134 LP. 0.134 LP for every plant. So if I want to hit $800, we'll use somewhere around here. Day 99, day 98. Now, by that point, we know, because of the steady decline, that this is going to be lower. We don't know what LP is going to be. It could be higher, it could be lower. And that can fluctuate. It was, 13, 14 days ago when drip was higher. We could call it 42, 43 if we're really bullish on drip, but just for now, just looking at the real decay, that this is the decay that we expect. We expect this to be lower. And so just looking at some random rough estimates, throwing numbers in here, it's really not a big change because of the compounding. If it drops that much, instead of day 98, 99, I'm 5 days later, day 106, 6 days later, that's where I'm back at my $800. And that's what people are saying here is that, and remember, these are daily amounts. So if you're claiming the 2 weekend days or however you're doing your strategy, you're going to still be coming out ahead on the long term. This is a long-term play. And again, it's high risk because we don't know where drip's going. We can't predict any of this. I can't tell you 100% certainty that this is going to continue making money for 8 months or 5 years. But if you have the long-term view in mind and you're bullish on drip, and you do expect those things, then this is what we're looking at. This is how we would plan ahead to see where our funds will be at in that amount of time. And look, when I've dropped it that much of a decay, I'm still hitting 800, but I'm just delayed. I'm 5 or 6 more days. So that's a big drop. That's a big decay, and I'm only 10 days past what I was originally. Once I get to this point, this longer term outlook. But it's going to decay. It's going to decline based on contract balance, based on that daily decay, because Forex has built it so that it increases buying power. These are daily amounts over here for new capital coming in. So that may even be a strategy. When you get to these levels, when you're making 100 plants a day, when you're making, say, $300 in a day, we'd have to, you're just compounding. These are all new plants that you're adding. You might even consider, if you had some funds from the drip faucet or somewhere else, you may throw it in here as new capital. Help dollar cost average that down and speed up your returns even faster. If I don't add any new capital, I think I'm going to easily outpace where I'm at. I may have thrown in 200 or something to start with, but so I'm pretty confident in that. These are daily amounts. And then, look what happens if this does go back up. It was about 39 in that last video 13 days ago. And you'll see this that makes a big difference along the way. But it had to have been higher when others were buying in. Before I got in, I think it was probably closer, 46, 40 something. So even with this heavy decay that I'm adding in here, and we'd have to actually do that per day to see exactly what we expect the decay to be. But I can't predict the contract balance. So we really can't do that either. The more people that are getting in on the contract over here, the more that buying power increases for every new plant. But you have to keep in mind that also reflects these plants here that you're planting each day. You have more buying power if you add more plants in. So, yep, so this is interesting. I just wanted to kind of share those numbers and also illustrate that pigs were going up as more proof that that's where people are transferring their funds into. And the other realization I wanted to share was that some have said that the strategy does really matter. Like basically framing it as if you get penalized for harvesting more than you are planting, than compounding. And I think it took a while for me to wrap my head around this, is that I don't think this penalty is actually built into the code. It's not something that you get penalized for. I've heard people say like, oh, my LP didn't really drop. And I think that's the case, is that there's no penalty, but you are penalizing yourself. So to make that a little clearer, if we look at this spreadsheet, it's basically like you took one of those days out. And that can make a big difference if you're further down here. So, let's just take this day 55. These 2 days, let's say you harvested. So you took $171 out, and guess what? This next day is not 177. Now we're not, and we're not at 171 because that decline still happened. So this fraction of an LP that you're getting, that rate per plant still declined, and you didn't compound. So you've lost ground now. And we'd have to do a little calculation to see where you are. But that means you're getting 171 that day, and now you've lost ground. You may, depending on the decay and how many plants you have, this is a lot of plants, you may now be at 165 again. You may be at 160. So you've lost ground, essentially. You've penalized yourself. And so that's why there's this strategy of, maybe we compound for 5 days, that outpaces it, we're keeping up, and then we claim a couple days. Or maybe we claim this day, harvest, claim, and then back to full. There's all types of strategies. But what you want to do is you're keeping an eye on your LP. You're making sure this is growing or at least not declining. Or at least, your dollar amount too. And of course, that's still affected by this daily fluctuation. But you just got to keep an eye on these numbers. If you harvested 3 days in a row and this drip BUSD is on the way up, well, it's not going to even look like it's not going to look like you penalized yourself at all. If this is on the way up and it was rising steadily, this LP value, and it rose for 5 days, you could harvest those 5 days, and these amounts may stay very similar because even the decay is not hitting you if this is rising fast enough. But so anyway, that was the realization I had, is that this is a penalization of yourself, not built into the code. It's not something that's in there hurting you. I don't think. I think Forex has been intentionally vague about some of that on purpose. That's why it's a game and we're playing it and we're finding the best strategies that we can. But yeah, I had that realization. I'm gonna make a separate short video on that. I doubt anyone's watching 20 minutes into these videos. I hope not. But if you made it this far, thank you. I appreciate the views. I know we're all trying to figure this out and see where we end up. So as always, thanks for watching. I appreciate the subscribes, and if you're just getting into it, I can't recommend one way or the other, but I'm still bullish on this. I can't tell you what to do with your funds. I'm not a financial advisor. I can't legally give that type of advice, but this is what I'm doing. I'm still bullish on the garden. I've still seen returns, and I even think without the referrals I've gotten that I would see returns. It would just be a little lower because, hey, what if I started with 5 plants? Well, I can compound every day, but especially where we are right now, it's going to take a little while to get that rolling, right? Because my increase is so small every day. I could be losing more than that based on the decay. So I understand that. If you don't have a lot of plants right now, if you came in with a very small amount like that, or where I was, 15 days ago or so, I was at like 15. You may be kind of stuck. You may be kind of spinning your wheels, but it does start snowballing eventually. It's just very far down the track. So just like anything else in investments, the more you had to throw in initially, the quicker you're going to see your return, the quicker you're going to see that compounding. And that's just really the way it works. I mean, if you find a protocol that's amazing and it lasts 20 years, that's great. But us smaller fish, if we only have what? If we only have $5 to throw in, if we only have $10 to throw in, then it doesn't matter if we're getting 20% a day. We're not going to see the same as the people with the huge bags who can get that 20% a day for 6 days and make a huge amount. They throw in half a mil. Like, there's obviously going to be a difference, and that's just how percentages work. That's how ratios work. We're going to struggle if we're at the lower end of this. One other thing people don't take into account here is that it does matter. If you compound at the end of the day versus every plant versus twice a day. And the reason is this is compounding once a day, this amount here. So every day, bam, I'm planting 7. Or let's talk about the day where I'm planting 8. If I planted half of those, if I planted 4 at noon, well, that 86.4 thousand that each of those 4 plants generates, so 86.4 thousand times 4, and then divide that in half because it's only a half of a day. But that's the amount of seeds I'm missing out by waiting until the evening versus if I harvested right away. I'm sorry, if I harvested midday, and I'm saying harvest, I mean compound. If I planted midday versus only planting in the evening, there is a difference. That would speed this up. So instead of these whole day increments, we'd actually have to put in half days. It'd be 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5. Or if you plant more than that, if you're compounding more than that, it'd have to be 1.2, 1.6, whatever portion of the day it is. And you are missing those seeds by waiting. They're not generating more seeds when they're waiting to be planted. So that is an important aspect of this that I think some people miss. You could speed yourself up if you're making more than 1 plant a day, planting each plant, which is hard if you're making 80 plants a day. But that does make a difference. It does also add up in gas, so that is something else to take into consideration there. So there's a few varying strategies you could approach that with, but you are missing seeds that day if you wait until the evening to plant and are planting once a day. So that's just something good to know. But as always, let's keep carrying on, keep compounding if you're in, and see where we get to. Thanks for watching.